All right, let me share this streaming link and then we'll start. General. Right. Let's see. Where's my presentation? All right. How's everybody feeling about jQuery? Except Goose or Josh. What about no? So the problem that I have with let's see, what do we have here? All right, the problem that I have with jQuery is it's just introduced really fast, right? You guys were just learning JavaScript. You guys can't even appreciate the power of JavaScript. Suddenly you get thrown with jQuery. That's the only problem that I have with jQuery, but unfortunately, that's how the syllabus is, and we do have to go through it. Um, so I feel like the real power of jQuery kind of gets lost. It is really beneficial. It kind of does reduce the amount of code we have to write using vanilla JavaScript. Again, when I say vanilla JavaScript, it's a term that is said that it's hard. The code is written in hard code JavaScript. They are not using any framework, any help. Everything is written in JavaScript. That's called vanilla JavaScript. If you are using jQuery or React or any other framework to help you write that code, it's not called vanilla JavaScript anymore. But again, jQuery is extremely helpful. It really reduces the amount of code that I have to write. But again, it takes time to appreciate it. And it comes when you have written enough JavaScript code to kind of appreciate, oh, now I know what. Like, example, you guys did CSS, right? And then you dived into Bootstrap. You guys really appreciate Bootstrap because the amount of code you have to write less and the power that Bootstrap brings to the table. The same is with jQuery. jQuery is extremely powerful framework. The only thing is it takes some time to really appreciate it. Okay, but I'm hoping that today's class is going to kind of help you understand that concept a little bit more better. So today's class, the only thing new is the scoping part. Even this is not as new because I've talked about scope. We're going to write some little bit more jQuery, and you guys will have more exposure. These exercises are kind of challenging, but we'll do that in the class. We'll start with one of the activities called Captain Planet. Some of you guys might be too young to remember Captain Planet, but that's I can see head shaking. That what are you talking about? Uh, Show what? Oh, okay. I'm kind of surprised. All right. So we'll take a look at what that activity is. The Captain Planet activity looks daunting, but if you look at the code, it's actually pretty. It's not as because a lot of code is given to you. Okay. Uh, the point in this activity is that you kind of go through the code, understand what it is doing, and then it's a simple matter of copy pasting basically. Okay. But the real thing is, please go through the code that is given to you, and then make sure you understand every single line, and then go ahead and do it. Okay. The next game, the fridge game, this is the challenging one. Okay. In this case, you probably have extremely less amount of code given to you, and then you'll have to work your way. You can look at, if you understand this code, it'll be a little bit easier to complete that one. Okay, but again, I'll give you time, and then I'll start solving the same questions. But please don't get into the habit of like waiting for me to complete those activities. Please do give it a try. Don't be like, oh, well, after 10 minutes, he's going to start solving anyway, so I'm just going to wait it out. Okay, please don't do that. All right. We'll get into the scoping part. We'll talk about scope. If there's time, there's one more activity, but that activity you don't have to do it. I'm going to just like I solve in the in the class hours, in the whatever office hours. I'm going to try to solve that activity for you. That activity closely aligns with your next homework. Okay, so I'm going to try to solve and walk you guys through that how I would approach that problem. The solution would be there. It's kind of very similar to your homework. It should help you in your homework also. Okay, again, technically I'm not supposed to actually code that activity out. I just have to like walk you through it and explain because it has large amount of code that will be helpful in your homework also. But I'll walk you through it. Okay. Let's see. All right. So before even we begin this game, let's. What I want to do is I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to see what these slides. I'm going to walk you. I'm going to talk about these slides. These slides are just a recap of jQuery, and then we are going to jump into the activities. All right. All right. All of these activities are group activities. The TAs will send out the groups, and everybody we are going to be working in groups. Again, the best recommendation to work in a group is I would suggest that one person types and everybody kind of look around that person. And then after like few minutes, change the position. Then somebody else comes in and starts typing. This will give everybody a taste of what it is, how to go about the activity, but also see and discuss how to solve that issue. Okay? Again, if you like that strategy, follow it. If your group decides something different, if you want to do it individually, like everybody's talking and just typing on their own computers, perfectly fine. But I would recommend look over somebody's shoulder, see how that person is doing. Actually, don't see how that person is doing, kind of help him or her to type the code out. So there's a strategy which a lot of companies follow. It's called paired programming. What happens is there are two people trying to solve the same problem. Okay, and one person is on the keyboard typing. That person is not actually thinking. That person is just typing dumbly, like whatever the other person says. The thinking part is being done by the person who's not typing. Okay, so the person who's typing is just listening and saying, and the other person is saying, "Hey, say var name is equal to double quotes," and that person is just typing. Okay, the thinking is being done by this person. After half an hour, we switch places. The person who was thinking kind of comes to the keyboard, and the other person is now looking over the code, and then he or she is doing the thinking. Okay, that's how it works. So everybody gets a chance, and then everybody makes sure that the code is correct and it's working. All right, give it a try. If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't, then you can go back to whatever is working for your group. Okay. All right, just a quick recap for jQuery. We saw jQuery. What were we doing with jQuery? jQuery is actually kind of hooking into our HTML, right? It finds our HTML elements and then attaches some code to that HTML. Okay. It uses events. One of the events we saw was key up, and then there are other events. For example, the click event. Okay. Let's start from the top. So how does it finds those HTML element? It uses IDs or class names. Okay, either one is fine. Okay. Um, Using this syntax on your left, it is searching for that HTML tag. Okay. Using the syntax on the right, div and p, it is creating a new tag. Finding, creating. Okay, if you want to create a new HTML tag in your code, you're going to use this syntax, dollar, and then the tag you want to create. Okay, this is jQuery. If you want to find an HTML element that already exists in your HTML, this is the syntax you use. Okay, everybody clear on that? Yes, boss. Yes, yes. But what's going to happen if you have more than one H1s, it's going to return you an array. Yeah. So I would not recommend doing that. Okay. Uh, if there's an H1, please add an ID to it. Okay. All right. The next one was events. How do we hook into the events? We were using the function called on, right? And then you're passing a string, click. This is your single click. Okay. The second event we saw was the ready event, right? Remember dollar document dot ready. This is every time you write jQuery, start with this function, start with this event. And what does this ready does? It makes sure that your HTML content is completely loaded before your jQuery or your JavaScript code kicks in. Okay, and this is what we want always, right? Again, this is the part of jQuery that's extremely easy. It's just one function, dollar document dot ready, and you are done. If you want to do it in JavaScript, it's not as easy. You have to kind of do some crazy stuff to get the same functionality. Okay, it's not an easy task to do. Okay, these are some other functions that you're going to look at in the Captain Planet exercise. But the one of them we have already seen is the append. What does append do? It adds an HTML to your HTML tag to your actual HTML to the DOM. Okay, if you want to add, if you have created some elements using this, then you're going to use append to kind of attach it to your HTML. Okay, any questions on this slide? Everybody clear? Finding, creating. Okay. You will take a look at this. Okay. For any other, hopefully, everybody knows how to find the documentation by now. Yes, Raymond. Yes. Yes. And how would you do that? What is an ID when it comes to HTML? Yes. Nice. It is an attribute. Now, how do you remember how I showed you the code to add an attribute? Right? There is a ATTR method. Look in the documentation. You can add, and just like you would add a class name, right? CSS class. Remember we saw how to add a CSS class using JavaScript. Same method exists in jQuery, and you would add an ID. Exactly the same way. It's just an attribute. Okay. Good question. It's called ATTR. Look at the documentation. I think it's called ATTR method. All right. Any other questions? All right. So let's go ahead and TAs are going to Slack out the groups, or unless they have it on the PC. All right. Can you please Slack out the groups? Hand-picked groups are going to be Slack. Okay. Get up. Get in your group, and then we'll start the next activity, which is Captain Planet. It's in, oh, there they are. In class activities. So looks like there are 2 people who are not here. Christina, I know. Who else is not here? Oh, okay. He's remote. Okay. All right. Get in the groups, and I am going to meanwhile pull up the activity, show you guys how it is.
Powers combined, I am Captain Planet. Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take pollution down to zero. He's our powers magnified, and he's fighting on the planet side. Captain Planet, take pollution down to zero. Gonna help him put us under. Bad guys who like to run down. You'll pay for this, Captain Planet. We're the Planeteers. You can be one too. Cause saving our planet is the thing to do. Looting and polluting is not the way. You're a different planet has to say. Power is yours. Yeah, good time.
All right, everybody in groups, good. All right, so this is activity number 10. All right, so this is a code that is already given to you. Some of the superpowers work. For example, let's try this one. Okay, what it does is grow. Captain Planet kind of grows inside. Okay, shrink, shrinks the image. Normal brings it back to the original size. Okay, visible, invisible. Let's try this. Invisible, the opacity is kind of going down. Visible comes back up. Down, right, left. Okay, now just looking at that looks super like might be difficult. Okay, but take a look at the code. Now the objective of this is you're going to add few more superpowers. For example, the solution has stretch, just a stretch added. Okay, so look at the code and see what else you can add. For example, stretches, one of them, start with stretching, um, like this is what stretch does, but you can add any other property that you understand once you look at the code. Okay, I want you guys to, let's see, oh, there are given some of the properties are given to you. Stretch, trigger, so you will have to add another music file basically, clones, and then add some images. Okay, so first of all, with your group, walk through the code, make sure you understand what is going on. There's a lot of code over here. Okay, uh, you don't have to, you can skim through, but make sure you understand, like this is bootstrap, get an idea what this is. That's it, done. Okay, move on to the next one, move on to the next one, and then come to your JavaScript, and then kind of walk through within your group and make sure that you understand the existing, how the existing code is working, and then go ahead and add one or two or more superpowers. Okay, um, and this is, so yeah, so you see how these are divided. Walk through, this is the unsolved one, so walk through this code within your group, make sure you understand, um, and then add one or more superpowers. Okay. Make sure to look in the jQuery documentation to see what these methods are, which ones are coming from jQuery. For example, animate is coming from jQuery. So look at the documentation for jQuery for this method. On is also, we have seen on. Let's see, what is this? Play. Mm,
this time. No, it looks good. All I did that superpower visit, like I just after that, I just changed it to stretch. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, what do you mean? Like, yeah. Oh, I just opened my activities, like, pull down from the main website for the week. I just go to the activities and just open everything. So I have all the activities lined up. Yeah, that's how I do it. That's smart. I just I know what the site is. Yeah, it's always fun. Okay, so what do they use for all the other stuff? So you can see right now the code that's been provided, the code behind every other change that's happening. So you press this button, the image gets wider. You press this one, it shrinks. So what's the code for that? So you're looking at your HTML right now, so JavaScript. So if you look all over the share, the function there. That's the function that I'll share. So what is Captain Bone? Okay, right, so then what's coming after that? Something in between. Check out jQuery and that's what you're doing. Kind of figure out what it's doing. Just look at the code that's already shared. Like, what do you see happening when you're using that type of function? What's going on inside? Does that look? Does any of that look really cool? What's inside of it? You guys notice that syntax is basically CSS. Because if I can get around here, change CSS, or even add that. Yeah, so you can see here, so what they're doing is when they call this, they give it animate function, and then they can assign new CSS that will happen when that's good. And so that's exactly what's going on with all these lights that are already in there.
All right. Any questions? Does everybody understand what's going on and how the code is working? Any questions on the code? So was it as difficult? I mean, the code, the basic code is there. The point was that you understand how this is working. Replicating the functionality and playing around with it is probably a little bit easier. Let me expand this. But any questions? No questions? Everybody understand how the code is working? Did you guys understand this audio tag? Okay. So this is a new tag that is included in HTML5, and if you read up on it on W3 Schools or any website, it tells you this. So this is a new tag that came with HTML5, and it allows you to play audio files. And it comes, if you use it in JavaScript, this audio tag, it kind of comes built in with these methods, and that's where this play method is coming from. If you search for this method over here, it does not exist anywhere in the code. Okay, but if you look at the documentation, you will see that if you create an audio tag, JavaScript gives you all these functions attached to that audio tag. So you can call these function any of these. So right now we are using the play, pause, these two methods, but you have all of these methods available, which comes with this audio tag. Okay, so this is a new audio tag which comes with HTML5. I think there's a video tag as well, which comes with HTML5. These are kind of newer tags that are in HTML5. Okay, animate function. Does everybody understand? This is coming from jQuery. Okay, and what is the parameter that animate function requires? What is the data type for this parameter? It's an object. All right. So please observe that this function requires an object. Okay, that's the important part over here. Look in the documentation, and you can see it takes an object, and these are certain things which are defined, which this function is expecting: height. Then you have your top, bottom, left, right. For stretching, you can also use width, and that will kind of stretch it. But these are some of the properties, and if you want to know what all properties are, the best way is go to the documentation and see, and they're kind of explaining with good examples, and they have these properties kind of defined. Most of these are already present in the code, so you can use this. But the important part is this animate function is coming from jQuery. Okay, they have created the function, and the parameter for this is going to be an object. Okay, those are the main points that I saw that I would look up to the documentation to understand what's going on. Any other question? That's switch. I was going to ask you guys, but all right, switch. So switch is a statement that is coming from JavaScript. Okay, what switch does, it's kind of like the if-else statement. All right, it's a different way to write if-else, but what switch does is you pass in a just like an if statement, what you are trying to test. So for example, e.which is giving you the key, okay, the code for a key. All right, that's what's important to understand. So in switch, you can put in any statement that you're trying to evaluate. So this is what you're trying to evaluate. So right now, for example, if e.switch has a value of 40, could be anything. Right now, in this case, it's numbers. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a string, number, anything. Right now, it's numbered. So what switch is doing is, switch is saying, if it is a 40, then do this. If it is 39, then do this. If it is 38, then do this. If it is 37, then do this. See what I'm saying? If. Basically, these are if statements, but this is another condition that comes with JavaScript. All right. The syntax is switch, and then you see these parentheses. These are wrapped around everything else. When you talk from technical terms, this is called a switch case statement. All right. We have for loops, we have if statements, and this is called a switch case statement. And the switch and the cases, this is part of the syntax. Okay, this is what you're trying to compare, the statement that you're trying to evaluate, and these are different cases. So if it is 40, then execute this case. If it is 39, then execute this case. Everything that is in pink and purple is part of the syntax. So switch, syntax, case, this is how you write exactly. And then at the end of every case statement, you're going to put a break statement. So what happens is, if it is 40, it's going to execute this case, it's going to execute this line, and then just exit out. It's not going to go further. It's going to just stop over there. That's what the break is doing. Break says, if you come over here, stop executing, just execute, just leave this whole switch statement. Okay, this is what the switch does. Again, with what I have said, go back a little bit, do some research, see if you can convert your if statements into a switch. Give it a try. If not, then I can come back and we can write the switch statement in some other example also. Okay, but again, these are um, kind of like the if statements. It's just another way to write your if statements. It's a little bit more cleaner than your if. It kind of breaks down what exactly you're trying to do. And then what happens is, as soon as your case is complete, it will exit out. It won't execute anything else. Okay, that's what the break is doing. Again, at some point, do some research, try to understand. If not, we'll come back and write some code using switch as well. Okay. Any other questions? All right. No questions. Let's move on to the next one. Now, next one is the one that is the tough one. This is called number 11, and this was just a warm up. Now you're going to actually write some jQuery code. What was that? This was yes. This was actually a warm. Let me show you the solution first, and then what we are trying to achieve. Activity number 11. Let's go ahead and run this. All right, so this is what it is. This is the game, and it's called fridge magnets. So every time I click any alphabet over here, it goes up and puts it on the top. So for example, if I click D, shows up over here. I shows up over there. L, keep going, switches line, and it shows up over there. Okay, it's going to keep going. All right. If I press clear, it's going to clear everything from the fridge. This is the goal. This is, you have to write code that this functionality kind of works this way. Okay, everybody understand the function? Just click this button and your same letter kind of shows up over there. All right, so now let's take a look at what the unsolved one is. Okay, so the first thing is there are no buttons, no alphabet. So that's first step. You have to create those alphabet over here. Okay, and then of course functionality behind every click. All right, clear is there, but I don't think it does anything. This button is just there. Take a look at this. You might have to replicate kind of similar functionality. Maybe that's why it's given over there. Take a look at the README. Look at, there are a lot of comments in this code. Start with your HTML. Make sure you understand what is given to you, and then what are the comments saying. What do you have to achieve? Okay. At some point, I'm going to start coding this exercise, but what I'm going to do is, I don't like how it is done. It's just one big HTML file. So you will see just my OCD sense is not letting me solve this without actually moving everything out. So I'm going to be creating separate files. I'm going to move the CSS out. I'm even going to move this JavaScript whole thing out, and then I'm going to go ahead and solve it, okay? But you don't have to do it. If you are fine, you can go ahead and start just coding. The important part is this part over here. You can complete this whole exercise in just this HTML file, okay? But I'm not going to do it. I'm going to separate it out, and then I'm going to solve this. Does everybody understand? Okay, if you are a group, as a group, decide what you want to do. Okay, I am going to solve it separately. It's a good practice because that's how I like to see the code, but again, it's your choice right now. All right, so exercise number 11, run it, make sure you understand what's going on, and then start solving this as a group. Make sure you take break. I mean, officially we'll take a break at maybe like 7:45 to 8. But again, this is a group activity. I won't officially announce a break. If you want a break right now, take 15 minutes and then come back, start on this one. Or if you guys want to start now, take a break at 7:45. It's totally up to you guys. Okay. Decide as a group. All right. Work with your team and see what 15 minutes break they want, and then the goal is that you have to complete this exercise. Okay. Take a break now. Take a break at 7:30, 7:45. Up to you guys.
Still got Jolly Ranchers going on up here.
Yeah, I think it's from the day one. It's still there. Yeah. Really tempting. Testing my patience with the one.
So how do we use paper? Mm-hmm. Well, what's going on right now? So inside your loop, what is you are looping your sorry. So presumably that's going to cover all of your and you're saying that each one of those you're doing so if you're doing all that inside of your loop, then everything that you're doing in there is going to go through that loop until it's done. Doing that every single time. Okay. So then for the
So I'm just going to separate these out first. let's see. So I need a CSS file. I'm going to say style.css, and then I'm going to create a fridge.js, and I'm going to move my JavaScript code inside this file. Let's see. Style. So everything in style goes away. Okay. Um, I moved all my code. Remove the style tags. Okay. Um, remove this. Oops. And there's my CSS. Okay. Before I go ahead, I'm going to load my CSS to make sure this is working. Okay. So let's go ahead and oops. Let's see why my fridge.png not found. Okay. Let's go back here. Oops. File. Let's change this. Since I changed my folders, so it's going to be the URL is going to change. It's going to be fridge.png. Let's go back. Okay. And my CSS is working. That's why I'm able to see this image. So this is good. So I moved my CSS and I moved it into a different file. Next, I'm going to move my JavaScript in this one. So I'm going to copy this whole thing here, move it to my JavaScript file, move the HTML tags, format it. Okay, there shouldn't be any other change. Next, I'm going to go back here, uh, move my jQuery code in my head tag. Okay, and then I'm going to add my script file. Script. Oops. Source. It's in my assets fridge.cs. Okay. If this import was successful, I shouldn't see any errors in my console, and no errors. So this looks like my CSS, my JavaScript is working, but just to be sure, I'm going to put a console log here and make sure that this is actually getting called. This is from fridge.js. Okay. Let's go back here, inspect, and there's my console. This means this is working and this is all good. So what I did was I separated everything. Now my HTML only has 19 lines instead of 100 lines. Much better, don't have to worry about just 3 tags in my HTML. and I can go ahead and close this. I just need to work on this file now. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of look through these. Create a for loop, and then inside the loop you have to do these things.
Hey there.
Hmm?
So I wrote that guy you told me to write on LinkedIn that went through that program, and all he said was no comment on InterEdge. I think he might be on the contract. He can't say anything, right?
Oh, really?
You're not allowed to talk about it, right? So, or
Is
at
that what he
least
said?
no. But I'm thinking you just said no comment. That sounds bad to me.
Yeah.
You know?
I know that's why I told you because I didn't want you to be like it's not working. I must have
Interesting.
wrong when it
Yeah.
So what are you thinking, man?
I don't know. It doesn't sound
doing
good.
like what it's
He
doing.
didn't say good or bad. Just said no comment.
Did you Google or Glassdoor and see if
Yeah,
somebody's
I've tried looking around. It's, that's I think that's why they're changing the name around. I think they call it hedging around and stuff like that. So,
Oh.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know.
So basically, you're creating a button for each of your
Oh, but this Saturday, do you have to find somebody for that Saturday the 7th? Just in case?
There's no class this Saturday.
No, Saturday the 7th. Which is supposed to be. Talk to her then?
Check with Lee.
All right.
She knew somebody. If
She
not,
does?
then we can post it on subscribe. Yeah, I think she has a friend. Ask her. Alright, so I'm going to start with the first one. Create a loop. Iterate through the letters array, which is over here. I'm going to change this to let. And then all the other steps are within this loop. So create a loop for for, I'm going to call it let I is equal to 0, I is less than letters dot length. Okay, I plus plus syntax for loop, and everything else is going to be inside this for loop. So I'm going to move this end parentheses at the bottom, number 6. So I'm going to move it here, format it, and this is my for loop done. Okay, create a for loop. I did it. Iterate through this, and number 1 is done. Number 2 is create a variable named letter btn is equal to this. Oh, this is a pretty good instruction. So let letter btn is equal to dollar button. Okay. What am I doing over here? I'm creating a HTML element button. All right. Remember the syntax. This is how you create a new one. It does not exist on my HTML anywhere. If I look at my HTML code, I just have two divs and a button, a clear button. This code is telling me to create a new button, okay, using jQuery. Once you have the button, number 3 says give each letter button the following class. And how many buttons am I creating? This is inside a loop. So I'm basically creating 26, 27 buttons. Why? Because it's going to loop through and create these many buttons. Why? Because this is inside a loop. Remember that. All the instructions up till 6 are inside a loop. So they're going to repeat until the length of this array. So I'm creating many buttons just with a for loop. Number 3 is then give each letter button the following classes. This means I'm adding some CSS classes, and they probably exist in my CSS. Just for curiosity, okay. So these are already classes that exist in your CSS. So you are adding these classes to your newly created buttons. And how do you add classes in jQuery? Did you guys look up the documentation? It's a pretty straightforward method. Dot add class. All right, pretty straightforward. So letter button, the variable dot add class, and then basically you can pass classes separated by space and it will work. So my first class is letter button. So put a letter button. Just like CSS, you can add a space and pass it the next one, and jQuery understands the letter. And then my last class, letter button, separated by a space, just like you add CSS classes. And number 3 is done. Number 4 is interesting. Please Google and try to see what is this data attribute. Make sure you guys are reading the documentation for data attribute as well. See if you can understand why it is there. Why are we using it? All right, number 4 says add an attribute. How do we add an attribute in jQuery? It's a function or a property? Oh, function or an attribute? It's a function. Okay. Um, and then I'm going to create an attribute called data dash letter, and this should be equal to letter I. So key, okay, and the value is comma and then value. Letter I. Do you guys understand what is data dash doing? Do you look at the documentation? All right, so give me a minute here. So you see this data thing over here? This is a new attribute in HTML5, okay? And the syntax is data dash star or asterisk, okay? This is used to store some custom data in your HTML, okay? This star can be replaced with any other variable name that you want to put. The syntax is data dash and anything, okay? This is important. Data dash is important. This is required. After that, you can put whatever makes sense to you. In this case, we are storing single alphabets in our attribute called data letter. Now, what does this translate to in HTML? How do you think this HTML is going to look like when I complete this line? It's a button, okay? Right? And my button and here. Okay? Then I'm adding these CSS classes over here. So in my final HTML is going to be class is equal to these classes, right? Everybody agrees? The line number 20 is going to render this code. The line number 23 is saying this is also an attribute. So this means this still comes over here, right? In the attribute section, this is where my button ends, let's suppose. So I'm going to have another attribute called data dash letter is equal to, and what's going to be the value? Whatever index I am on. So let's suppose the first time is going to have 8. The second button is going to have same thing. This is my second button. Okay, it's going to have a class, all those classes, and then it's going to have a data dash letter attribute, right? And then it's going to be B. Alright? The third button is going to have exact same thing. This time the attribute is going to be, the value for this attribute is going to be C. Then B. Then up to where? Until this array ends. Why? Because this is all happening in a loop. So I'm creating 27 buttons, right? Why? Because it's looping through. And each button is going to be created like this. And finally, it's going to have a new attribute for data dash letter. It's going to have the value for each letter. At this point, this is what we understand. Why? That's coming in the next steps. But this is what is happening. Right? This code is going to render. If you look up, if you have completed this part, do an inspect and see that you are going to have these buttons with exactly this way. Okay? And this is required for the next steps. But this is what is happening. Does everybody understand until here? Okay? So complete this. Complete it number 6. Inspect and see if this is what happens. This is how it should be. I'm still missing 2 steps. So I'm going to complete these and then I'm going to run my code. Make sure that I can see this HTML in my Chrome browser. Yes, at number 6, you should have buttons. At number 6, yeah, that's what I said. Complete, you have to complete all of these. Yeah. Then you should have buttons. Yeah, because I haven't completed these two. So we have to come. Remember, append, nothing happens until you append it to something. Right. Josh, what is the function for number 5? What did you guys use? Excellent. And then letters I, right? Okay. So it says give each letter button a text equal to this, and this is how you do it in jQuery. And then finally append it to buttons div. Let's go to my HTML. It's a separate file. I don't have to scroll up nicely, so I can just switch here and see. This is a div I'm attaching all my buttons to. Okay. So go ahead and use the, since I'm accessing this time, so I'm going to say hash buttons dot append, and I'm appending the newly created letter buttons. Okay. At this point, is everything good? I should see buttons on the screen, which I don't. So let's go ahead and, oops. I think my HTML went bad. Let's see. Is anybody able to see the buttons after that? Or am I, that's not how it's supposed to be. Oh, there it is. That's much better. Okay. So after point number 6, you should be able to see buttons. They don't do anything. But at this point, I'm going to say, please inspect and see the HTML that it is generating. Extremely important to understand. So in my div, I have all these HTML, and as I was saying, this is exactly what I was saying. This is how it comes through. Also, please note there is no ID attached to each button. Button does not, these child buttons do not have an ID. How do you identify these individual buttons? They don't have an ID. That's where the next part comes in. Did every group get to this point and they're able to see any group that is not here yet? The first part. Is everybody good? Any questions? Everybody understand? Okay. Now we do the next one. This is a little bit more trickier than the first part. Create an on-click event attached to the dot letter button class. Okay, so your steps number 8, 9, 10, 11 are going to go inside that event. Dollar class name, dot on, and then click event. That's what we are looking for over here. So we have dollar. Let's start from the next line. How do I create an event? It's dollar parentheses dot on and something. And within the first parentheses is the class that I'm trying to attach, which is going to be this. Okay. Dot on. What method am I looking for? Click. And then the second parameter is going to be my callback function. Okay, my callback function. This is what they're asking for. So all of these, so I'm going to move this at the end because all of this goes inside here. Format it, and there it is. Okay, so I created the on click event, attach it to letter button class, and on click this should fire. Even before I proceed, I'm going to test this out. I'm going to do a console log to make sure that this event is actually working. Button click, it doesn't matter what, it just has to work. So I'm going to console log and make sure that this code actually works before proceeding. So if I click, I should see something in my console. Okay, so I see button click event firing, I see the text. So this means I have written my on click event correctly. So I don't need this anymore. This is all good. Now I can go ahead and proceed with the next steps. So create a variable, let fridge magnet is equal to new div. How do I create a new div? Dollar and the div tag. Okay, this should create a new. What is the option shift F? This is what happens when you're using two different IDs. So I use IntelliJ at work and Visual Studio over here. I keep forgetting what's the formula. All right, so created a div. Give each the following classes, same as previous one. Fridge magnet dot add class. I'm just going to copy these classes. Okay. Number 10. Interesting. That then chain the following code onto fridge magnet variable. So dot text, we have already used dot text, right? This is how you use it. Variable name, dot text, and something, and that's what they're saying. Use this variable name, and then dot text and this weird stuff. Okay, let's complete it and then see what it is. Fridge. So they are saying fridge magnet dot text function, right? This is from jQuery, so we know it's going to assign the text. Within the text says dollar this dot attr data letter. Now here's the question: what is this thing? How do I test this? So I want to see what is going on over here. I can simply console log this and see what's the output for this one. Like what is this thing that I just copied? This data letter. So let's go back and see. And this code is going to get fired when I click on the button. So if I click on the button, oh, you see this K, J, R, and this is when I do this console log over here. So basically, this code is giving me the letter that is clicked. Do you see what happened? This line of code is actually giving me the letter that I click. And why is it giving me the letter that I click? Can somebody explain why am I getting the letter? Go ahead. Uh-huh. And then, Chris, what were you saying? It's stored? It's stored in that attribute. Excellent. All right, guys, take a minute and make sure you understand this. Now, this is what the output is. I don't have IDs over here. You must have noticed there's no ID over here. There's no way to find out which button was clicked. Why? Because all of them look the same class names. Okay? Same attributes, same tag. The only difference is these data letter that we added, letters, right? So this is what it is saying. As soon as I click this, what is this does? The first part to understand is .attr this thing. This is relatively simpler to understand, right? This is a function from jQuery which returns the the data stored in this attribute. What attribute? This attribute. Going back, what is stored in this attributes? The letters. If you hover over, you see the color changes. These are the letter that we stored in our for loop above. Okay. Now, how do I access this? This is what is the one that is letting me access. Again, there's no way to differentiate between these buttons. Does everybody? There's no ID. Even the classes are same. The only way you can differentiate between them is letting jQuery handle that. And how do you let jQuery handle? Basically, you are saying that whenever somebody clicks on a letter, okay, go ahead and access that element for me. Okay. jQuery, when jQuery sees this thing over here, is going to bring you the correct HTML, the correct button that was clicked. Okay, so you are telling jQuery, hey, I don't know which was clicked. Why? Because I don't have any way to identify what's going on. I don't have an ID. The classes are the same. I have no idea what is going on, right? So please go ahead, whichever button was clicked, go to the attribute of that button, okay, the data letter, and get me whatever I have stored behind the scenes on my line number 26. Okay, over here, we are assigning a value to our data letter attribute on line number 23. On line number basically 49, I'm accessing the data attribute, whatever was stored in this one, which is a letter A, B, C, or D, it doesn't matter. Okay. Another reason that we need this is because my HTML, the button over here does not exist in my HTML. If you look at your HTML code, there's no button over here. When you generate any HTML dynamically, this is how you access it. You can put an ID to it and access it also, but the problem over here is we don't have an ID. And if you were to assign an ID, you're going to have ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 26, 27 IDs. And then you have to write 26 if statements or something to catch each existing ID. Too much code. This is a shorter way to let jQuery handle this for us. Again, console log this, and then you will see you are getting back each individual letter which you click. If I click O, it returns me O. If I click Q, it returns me Q. Why? Because for Q, the data that I have stored is this. Again, you can store anything with this attribute. That's the power of this. It's called a data dash any name you want to give. This is new to HTML5. Okay, if you want to store something behind the scenes, you're going to use this attribute over here, data dash anything. Okay, questions? If you haven't reached this point, go ahead and try it and then let me know if you have any questions. But this is probably the most difficult part of this whole exercise. Um, 11 is easy. Just go ahead and append it using the append method, and uh, you should start seeing those buttons on the fridge. So fridge magnet. Oh no, sorry. Display. Dollar hash display. That's the attribute. I'm going to append all my newly created fridge magnets. Okay. After line 11, when I click, I should start seeing buttons on the top, and there they are. The last part is clear. It doesn't work. The last task would be to write the code for clear. It's not as difficult. Again, same thing. You're going to write this click one. You're going to write a click event for the clear, and then within it, just clear the whole HTML, whole this tag, because I'm adding these in my display div over here. So basically, you're trying to clear everything within this div. Maybe Google and try to see it's the method that will clear. Oh, actually, it's already there in line number 13. So any group completed this activity? Wow. One, two, three. You guys completed? Oh, two. Anybody else? I have one. This group also three. Okay. You guys are done too? Okay. Getting there? Again, I understand that the hints or the points were like very clear, but make sure that you understand this concept over here. This is extremely important so that you can rewrite this concept in your homework. I'm pretty sure this is going to come up. So I'll give few more minutes, and I'm not going to code the clear button. Pretty straightforward. Make sure you go ahead and do the clear button. I'm going to leave this code over here.
Well, you are getting a clue, right? So you wouldn't see the style is for ones that are actually up on the. So let's take a look at your sentence. Now, right, but what is that?
Are we not the same group?
Yeah.
Right. Take off. Because remember here, we've already declared and signed our variables, and now we just change stuff into it. It's not until we actually hit access, sign on HTML. There you go. But nice. That's the first thing you should always do. Hello. Thanks.
Another, so one way of, the next step would be bugging that, when you actually inspect the DOM, and to see if that, well, to see if that actually appended something, in which case we would have seen that it appended something, but we wouldn't have. Oh, like just right click on the HTML and then inspect over here and look to see if, when we did this append to display, see if there's actually a new HTML element to the display, and then we would have seen that there was, but it's not showing up, so then we would know, okay, the problem is the CSS.
All right, I'm going to give 3 more minutes, and 8:25 we are going to start our next topic. Let me know if you have any question before we move on to this one. Move on from this exercise.
So that means that jQuery is not going to put that all the
My guess is just go back.
Yeah, why do you think that's not at all? So that's not quite it. So your browser, you gotta start at the top and then to look at everything top down, right? So what happens when we get here?
Okay, so because you used this two is you basically just split the learning. That's what it's like. Now is that
Well, one thing you might try is So the console log or something inside this loop
All right. Any questions before we move on? Last chance. Does everybody understand? Got it? Tyler, you look confused. All right, let's walk it through. Good question. So what is this CSS? Where is this? It's this one, right? Right? All of them have the CSS, right? So what is this code saying? That anytime somebody clicks on this CSS, right? Now, when is this code going to get fired? If I click this or this or this or this or this, right? I click any one of them, that code is going to get fired, right? I have no way to identify what happened. I just know that anytime um, this CSS class is clicked, is going to fire this code. Okay. Now, how do I identify actually which button was clicked? I cannot use letter button because there's no way I cannot identify in my code which was clicked. Okay, that's where the this comes in. If you do $this jQuery, when this click happens, jQuery knows exactly which button was clicked. Okay, if I click this one, the $this over here will bring me the exact row, the exact button. And what do I do with this? I use the ATTR method to find out what did I store in this attribute, right? And this attribute is going to have the letter that I stored on above line, right? And that's how I get it, and I set the text, and that's what it is. Okay. At this point, it's going to get called any button you click. Why? Because there's no differentiating factor. How do you differentiate? You use this. This is how it will identify. The first line, the click one, happens when any one of them is clicked. Okay. This line happens. It gives me the exact HTML tag that was clicked. That's how I find out. Okay. The other reason is if you see these buttons are actually not in my HTML, right? There's no button over here. It's created on the fly dynamically. If this is the case, then this is how you access it. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Good. Making a little bit more sense versus previous one. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and. I mean, I won't see you guys for a whole week, so I want to leave you guys even more confused. So, so you're going to do some more confusing exercise. All right, so let's do this together. I'm not going to make you guys do it alone. Okay? Take a moment, look at the first function. Let's start from, don't worry about the HTML. We are looking at JavaScript. Okay? All right, the topic is scope. We have kind of covered it. I just want to show you some more weirdness in JavaScript. Okay? Generally speaking, you will not write code like this, but yes. What is it? Number 13. 13. Okay? So let's start from line number 13. Line number 13 to 32. All right, so what's going on in line number 13? Chris W. All right, line number 13 to 24. What are we? Just line number 13, let's say. What are you doing? No, we are not calling a function. What's the other? I mean, there's only two options. Calling is not one of them. Then we are defining or declaring a function. Okay, we are not calling at line number 13. We are not calling. We are defining. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, all right. What about line number 15, Chris? Keep going. Line number 15. Okay, yeah, everybody clear on that? The question is, what is the scope of this variable? What does this mean? Can I access this variable on line number 25? Chris, can I do console log x? Is it valid or not? No. Why not? All right. Does everybody see that? My function scope is from line 13 to 24. It ends over here. All right. This variable scope is between these two lines. It's not visible. It's not accessible outside. Is everybody clear on that? Right. It's following the scope. It's following. This is called block scope. Okay. Why? Because it's only visible within this block of code. So this is called block scoping, and variable x is not visible outside line number 24. Okay. Simone.
I was gonna ask if you could say that again because I
Which part? I'll say and then you'll answer the next question. Okay. Which part? All right. Which part do you want me to say it again?
So you were saying everything that is inside of I don't know what the box is. It's not
The block?
the
Yes.
box is not visible.
No. I was saying that you declare a variable,
Okay.
and this is inside this function, and this function ends on line number 24, right? So this variable is only visible, the scope of this variable is within this function. If you do a console log outside this function, it's going to give you an error. Why? Because variable x is just visible from line number 13 to 24. That's the scope of that variable. Why? Because it's following the functions follow something called block scope. Okay, and variables that you declare inside the function are only visible within the function. They are not accessible outside. Okay, block scope. Okay, so the question is, what's happening on line number 18? Line number 18 to 20. What are we doing on line number 18? No, you're right. Keep going. Yes. Why are you so shocked? That's the what? You are declaring completed.
You're declaring
Function, yes. So at line number 18, we are declaring a function. Right? Anytime you see a keyword function, we are declaring. That's when you use the function. Okay? So line number 18, we are declaring another function which is actually inside this function. Do you guys see it? Again, this is called nested function. Generally speaking, I mean, in this course, I highly doubt that you're going to write some code that is going to have this thing, but it is totally legal in JavaScript. Okay. Inside the function that is called inside is called nested function. Why? Because it is inside this function. Okay. Does everybody see it? Now, Simon, keep on. What is the scope of the function that is called inside? All right. So this is the regular question that I would ask. What is the scope of this? But if you don't, it's I understand it's difficult to understand these technical terms right now. What I mean is, what is the visibility of the function inside? Okay, keep going. Can I access this function on line number 25 or not? Right? You see, this is what I was asking. The answer is no, yes. But the technical term, again, this is some of this is really popular interview questions. I'm not even joking. When you go for JavaScript questions, they'll throw you this code and they will ask you, hey, what is the scope of this and what is the scope? People love asking these kind of questions. Okay. The thing is because JavaScript is weird and they have these all rules, so they're trying to test out that if you actually understand what's going on. Okay. Now we understand that the function inside is not visible outside line number 24, right? Why? Again, it's inside this. This is block scope. This is all. Okay. Everybody good? All right. Yes, Chris. C.
So asking that question, what's the scope inside? Like, what is the answer? The scope is out the function outside.
Yeah. The answer is function inside is only accessible within the function outside. You cannot access this function outside function.
Right.
Okay. No, go ahead. What is it?
I mean, I get that. I just
Okay.
wondering if
And that's the answer.
That's
Yeah.
actually what
Right.
it says.
The scope ends at line 24. You cannot access it outside line 24.
So
Okay.
someone asks you for the scope of function outside, say line 13 through 24.
The function. What is the scope of the function outside?
13 through
No, it's global. You can right. It's on the main file, which is over here. You can access it. It's basically global. Remember, anything that is starts within the script file on your main JavaScript file, right? It's global. So this is accessible everywhere. Okay. So the scope for outside function is global. That's what you will say. All right. Yes. What is it? Oh, I thought he was saying you. Yes.
Well, two questions. One, what does return mean?
Yeah, we were getting there. So you will answer that. What does return?
Oh,
Next question.
Should get my mouth shut. So the function outside is global. So if you have it linked from another JavaScript file, can you still access it
Yes.
inside of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's global. When I say global, it's literally global. Yeah, you can access this from any other JavaScript file.
Okay. So then, are there any cases you link multiple JavaScript files? Like, is there ever a need to?
Yeah, you are going to link multiple. Why? Because your code is going to grow big. Well, you don't have to. You can create one JavaScript file with 2,000 lines, right? There's no issue. If I see that code, I'm probably not even going to skim through. I'm going to say, you need to go and separate those out, and that's what you do. So you make different logical files, and that's where you put the code in. So you will have multiple files. Yes. Okay. All right. Before you answer line number 23, Josh. So can I access the variable x? Okay, line number 15 on line number 19. Can I access this variable x inside function?
I think so.
You can. Okay. So anything your inside functions, right? They have access to outside functions, outside variables, what you declare. Okay. But any variable that you define inside var z is equal to 5. Does my outside function have access to this variable? Josh, what do you think?
I don't know.
What is the scope for this variable? Z.
Wouldn't it just be accessible from the inside? Like,
Yes. Right? You guys see why? Because it's following this block scope. The Z variable takes birth over here and dies over here. That's it. Right? Its scope ends at line number 23. Okay? So inside functions have access to outside variables, but outside variables don't have access to, or outside, these variables are not accessible outside. Right? It's going from, so from inside you can see everything, but from outside it's kind of like a black box. You cannot see inside. Okay? This is an important concept and it's called closure. This is another favorite question that people ask. Do you know what closure is? This is what closure is. Your inside functions have access to variables that are declared in the outside function, but your outside variables cannot see or cannot access anything that is inside functions over. Why? Again, the block scope, right? This is the visibility of this is the visibility of this. Okay, closure. All right, any questions before we go to line number 25? Okay, Josh, what is line number 25? Return inside.
My guess is that it's like console.log.
Now, what is inside this keyword? Where have I defined this?
You define that as the function.
Right? So this is the function. So basically you are saying return this function. That's what line number 25 is saying. Okay, we'll see what it actually does, but basically line number 25 is saying return this variable or whatever this is, and what is this? This is actually a function. So this whole function is returning you a function, another function, which is this one. Okay, now let's see line number 29. What is going on line number 29? You declare a variable inside out and you call this function. Okay, what is this function? This one. What happens? When you call this function and I'm assigning it to a variable, this means this function is returning me something, right? You understand what functions are? If you're assigning something from a function, this means something is coming back. That's why I have this variable. Okay, now what is coming back from this function? Another function, an inner function. You can totally do this in Java. Again, most probably when you're working, you won't run into these cases. But again, we need to understand that you can return whole functions also in JavaScript. Again, line number 29, what happens? You call a function outside, it goes here, does something, declares a function, and then returns this function over here. Okay? Now, with that logic, what is happening on line number 32? What is inside out? Is it this one? No. Why? There's nowhere that this is accessible. You cannot call this. But what is this going on? It's calling this variable over here. And what is this variable? This is a function. Why it is a function? Because when you call this, it goes here, goes here, goes here, and returns this whole function. It literally returns this whole function inside this variable. Okay, at this point, at line number 22, inside out becomes a function itself. Why? Because outside is actually returning a whole function. You define a function inside, and then you just return it. You return this whole function with the signature, with the variables and everything. So that's why if this is a function, how do I call this function? It's taking one parameter, so I pass in 2 over here. What's going to happen when I pass 2 over here? Let me go ahead and remove this line. So what is going to get console logged if I call line number 29? 3, right? So 2 comes here, plus 2. X, this is visible over here. So 1 plus 2 is going to output 3. Okay, so it outputs 3, but there's a error which is on this one. Why is there's an error? X is out of scope, right? We cannot access X from outside line number 23. So if you try to access X, it's going to give you an error. So if you just comment this out, that error should go away. Questions? There's no way you guys got this.
No, not at all.
Okay, so then where did it start? Yes, Josh.
What's the functional use? Like, what are you going to be using return most often
When are you using general return or when are you using to return a function?
Return like in Java.
In general, we've been using, right? If you create your add method and it was adding two numbers and it was returning the sum. Remember in the previous exercise you would create a function add and then you would pass in two numbers, right? And then you would add them up and then do a return which returns the addition of these two numbers ends over here, and then somewhere in the code you are calling this saying var sum is equal to add pass in two numbers, and the sum is going to have the addition of these two numbers. That's where the return is. This return you're going to use a lot. Return is there. The only thing is returning a functions. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see when we get to that point. Yes, no. Yes, Chris.
I don't really get how the 2 is being passed to the wall.
Right. How is it 2 getting passed? So what is this? This is a function.
It's the function.
It's literally this function over here. This function requires one parameter, right? And then you are just calling it like you would call any function.
So it knows if the person's
It knows what?
outside doesn't have any parameters. So
Yes, outside doesn't have any parameters, so that's okay.
in the first parameter
Right.
it finds.
Right. No. Outside doesn't have any parameters, but you're not using outside over here. Outside kind of finishes over here. Outside's job is you call outside, it goes here and it returns this whole function to you. That's its job.
Oh.
Okay, it returns the function. Now this thing, this is actually this. Okay, now this requires if you have two parameters, then you need to pass in two. If there are three, it doesn't matter. You just have to pass those. Okay, why? At this point, again, this is just the exact copy of this function.
If you didn't pass any parameters using inside out, would it just return the?
It's going to give you maybe like a undefined or something. If you do like this,
Yeah.
that's more like on the JavaScript side. It gives you an error, nen, which means not a number. But that's if you skip the parameters that are required. So it's not unique in this case. It's going to give you an error anyway. Yeah. So you have to pass in something because it's expecting something. Moving on. Okay. No questions? Yes, Adriel, you have a question? No? All right. Let's look at the second one. This is number 2. Okay, let's start with this first. What are we doing at line number 11? Everybody understand that we are creating an object over there, line number 15? Okay. Object is cat. It has 3 properties and 1 function or method, whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right. Now, if I want to access these properties within my function over here, how do I access them? How do I access name property within this function over here? Not outside, inside. Cat.name, but we don't say cat.name. What do we replace cat with? This. If you're trying to access these properties within the function that is also part of the object, you use the keyword this, right? This.name, this.color, this.age. That's how it works. Okay? So, and that's how it is. Okay, if you run this, it's going to give you line number 23. It's going to give you the name from the top, color, age, everything is good. Okay? Is everybody clear on that?
Is it only if it's in the object?
Yes. This is only required if this function is part of the same object. Yes. Outside, how do we access it? You put the object name and then you try to access them. Yes. Okay. Now here's the tricky part. Okay. Again, it's more for knowledge. I highly doubt you would ever do something like this. I don't know. Maybe one of the TAs can tell if they have done something this in professional. But okay. So you have a function which is part of an object, and line number 25 is a nested function. Okay. Does everybody understand what a nested function is now? Going back. A nested function is when you declare a function within another function. Okay, so this function you are declaring within this function, print info. Okay. Okay. Now, so you have a function within a function. Now, if you try to access these properties on the top, name, color, age, inside this function that you are declaring, just like line number 23. So you just want to do a console log this dot name, this dot color, this dot age. Okay. This is invalid now. It does not work. Okay. One more time. On line number 23, this is good. This you want to access, you have a function, you want to access name, color, age. Okay. You do this, it's going to give you the right. But within this function, if you have a nested function, which means you create another function for some reason, I don't know why. You create a function and then you try to access the same thing, it's not going to work. The reason is the keyword this will lose focus within a function. That's what you lose scope or focus. Let's say scope. It's going to lose the scope if it is called inside a nested function. Okay. Just remember this. If you have an object, okay, and within an object you have a function, and within that function you have another function. Okay. If you want to access these properties, you cannot do it. This is going to give you error. It's not going to work. Okay. It's going to output something. Well, it's going to give you undefined, I think. See this undefined, undefined. Okay. Where is nan? What?
On that same line.
On the same line, the name, color, undefined. The name doesn't have an undefined value.
Oh, name. I thought you were saying nan. I was like, where is the NN? Yeah, name is. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Why, we'll see why it doesn't have. But this dot color gives undefined. This dot age gives undefined. Why? Because this keyword this loses focus or scope, and you cannot do this. It's going to give you an error. Now look at line number 29. It is still accessing something. It is accessing the global object that is called window. Okay, if you try to use this within a nested function, it starts referring to, it doesn't refer to this object over here, it starts referring to the global object which is called window. Okay, so it eventually goes and brings out this window object over here. You see this cat is part of that window object. So this gives you a hint how would you access that. We'll come to that later on. Okay, again the important point to remember over here is within an object, if you have a nested function, you cannot use this. It loses focus. It does not act the way that we think it's going to act. So don't use this within a nested function in an object. What is it actually referring to? It's referring to something called window. What is window? Window is a global object which defines this window over here, your Chrome browser. It's referring to that object. Okay. Now, if it is referring to that window object, why does this does not say undefined? Why do you think? So this is now referring to the window object. Okay. Does this object have a color property? It doesn't. That's why it's giving you an error. It does not have age also. That's why it's giving you an error. What about this? Right. So it does have a property called name. Uh, Luckily, we are using a property that already exists. That's why it doesn't give you undefined. It's just empty. So if you open window object and try to search, there is most probably a property called name, and it's empty. That's why it comes up. There it is. Okay, so we kind of got lucky that there already exists a property, but it's not the one that we are trying to access. Now, if I want to access the actual one, how do I access it? If you do a console log, you saw the cat object over here, right? And this object has everything. So all I have to do is do a this dot cat dot name, and it should give me the correct name now. Okay. Replace this with this dot cat dot color, and it should give you the color, and this dot cat dot age. This is how you fix this. Again, just remember, within an object, if you have a nested function, this keyword is kind of goes wonky and it doesn't work the way we want it to work. Instead, it starts referring to something called window, which is a global object. Yes. Yes. Why do we need this? Because remember, if I console log this, it gives me this window object. If you open this object then has the name cat. So I have to say this dot cat dot name. That's why. Oh, if you take out this, what happens if I take out this? What happens if I take out this? Like, where would you use cat dot name? Like, how do you remember? How do you use this syntax? No, you use it. You use it outside the object, right? If you're trying to access those properties from outside the object, that's how you do it, right? Cat dot name, cat dot color, and cat dot age, right? So basically, you have to access if there's a nested function, either do this dot cat name or access it like you would do it from outside. Now, how do I access these names from outside my object? I have to do cat dot name, right? Cat dot name, right? And then cat dot age. This is how I access them outside my object, right? My object kind of ends over here. Okay. So if you have a nested function, either you do this and I think that's what you were saying. It's kind of redundant. You can remove this, but this is how you would access it, right? Basically, you are trying to access it like you would access it from outside the object. Okay. Again, this is only true if you have a nested function. Okay. Otherwise, it works the same way. You have to use the this dot name. It will give you the correct value. The reason is, again, this is one of the favorite questions people try to ask and try to trick people. They're trying to understand, do you understand what's going on and what object is this function referring to? It's referring to the global window object. You have access to this object window over here, and it has all these properties. That's what this is referring to. So basically, just understand, if you have a nested function, within a function that is part of an object, the keyword this is not referring to this object. It's referring to the window object, the global window object. That's the answer to this. Why does it? This does it. Yes. Oh, that's why it does it?
Well, I was going to ask if the window object, because of Dom, has the information for the cat object. How did the window have that?
How does window have what?
So if you're accessing the window object to get that information,
Uh huh.
does window have that information? Because of
Oh
Dom?
yes. It's not actually the DOM, but everything is part of something. Okay, so anything that you declare, eventually JavaScript is attaching it to some global objects that we don't see. It's kind of a little bit more advanced, but eventually all variables and objects that you create, they are attached to a global object, which is window. Okay, we don't use it, but behind the scenes, when JavaScript runs, it actually is attaching all of this to our global object window. And you can see if you open a window, you see the cat over there. If you create any other variable, you will see those part of window object. That's how JavaScript kind of attaches it. Okay, we'll talk about maybe towards the end of this course, when you guys are more familiar with JavaScript, there are some good concepts, but they are a little bit more advanced. And I don't want to teach those. I want to have a discussion about those. I can try to teach those concepts, but they are extremely confusing. But once you are familiar with it, it's going to be a good discussion, and it won't be like a teaching moment. It will be more like a discussion, and we can we can sit together and laugh how weird JavaScript is. That's a more interesting discussion versus me trying to convince you it's weird. Okay? We'll talk about those maybe towards the end of the course. All right. So just remember this: that if you have a nested function, the keyword this means totally something different. It's referring to a different object over here. Okay? Let's see. Okay, this is not too bad actually. Well, we have already covered this in the first one. It's just kind of going through it. Let's see, Chris C. It should be easy. So, what line number 21? What happens? What do you see? Okay, and what would happen? Okay, right? So the output for this would be an alert 1 and A would be 1. Okay, simple. Everybody see it? All right, any questions from over here? Okay, you have variable on the top and you're calling this function. Why is it able to access this A over here? Because A is a global variable. It's outside the function, so it's a global variable. The scope is it is accessible everywhere, it's visible everywhere. So that's why you can access it within the function. Okay? Got it? All right, let's do Basim. Let's do number 2 top. What happens when you call this function? What would you see? So you call 2 top first. Okay, it goes over here. Okay, is it going to call this? No. Why? Because it's defining a function. Right? Excellent. But it comes to line number 31 and then it's calling this function. Okay, and what do you pass? A, and what is the value of A? It's global, so it's still 1. Okay, you got it? Yep, that's what it is. So it says 2 and the output would be still 1 because we have that on the top. Or it's if I yeah, so because A over here is on the top, which is 1, and it shows 2 is equal to 1. Okay?
Now, because inside of that nested function, you're also calling upon a parameter that is A.
Yes.
Is it pulling that variable twice, in a sense?
Twice.
So pulling it within the parameter function in parentheses where it's 2 plus A. Does that make sense?
Oh, so this one, it is pulling this one. So it starts from inside and goes outside. So when you try to access any variable, it's going to try to find this variable within its scope. Okay? And it's going to find it over here. If I put B over here, okay, if I say B, this variable is not within scope. First, it's going to go and try to find this variable within its scope. It doesn't find it. Then it's going to go up and try to find this variable B in this scope. It's still not there. Then it's going to go up and try to find a variable called B globally. If it's not there, then it's going to throw an error saying, oh, undefined. Okay, so it starts from inside and kind of branches out. So the first thing is it tries to find this variable inside over here, finds it, it's done. If it's not, then it keeps going up until it tries to find this variable, otherwise it kind of fails. Okay, good question. What about Jeremy? What do you think about number 47? Um, 3. Is everybody in agreement? The output is 3? No? Oh, no. Okay. So 3 gets called, comes over here. A is 3, alert, A, 3. Okay? Why do you think not? Again, it's going from inside and outside. So first it will try to find a variable called A within its scope. If it finds it, it's done. If it didn't find A, then it's going to go up and A. Okay, if I comment this part, then the output is going to be 5. Why? Because it doesn't find A within scope, so it goes up and finds A over here. Okay? Alright, last one is tricky. Who wants to do the last one? I'm not going to pick on anyone, so someone. Come on, don't make me pick anyone. Give it a try. Or take a minute and see. And Goose, you seem like your hand was going up.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't know it, but
Okay, just walk us through and we'll figure it out together. Walk us through. Line number 70. Okay, start from here.
70?
Well, 70 is the one where you're calling this function, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What happens? So start from the top. So it calls this. Line number 52 is 5. Okay. We can ignore this because this is just a definition. It doesn't do anything right now, right? It's just a definition. So we can ignore until we call this function. Is everybody in agreement? That when I call my first method, it comes here, it executes this. This is just a definition. It's defined this function, doesn't do anything. So important in line number 64. At line number 64, then this method gets called. Okay? So now we go to the second method. Second, we have a variable a is equal to 3. Okay? Third, again, definition, don't have to worry about it. Come to line 61, it calls this method. Now this is relevant. So this gets called. What would be the value of a? 3. All right, you guys are getting it. See, it looks for a within its scope, doesn't find it, goes up within its scope, finds a, it says a is 3. Okay, now this is complete. This is complete. Comes back. So what do you see over here? Everybody agrees? 5, right? That's what I heard. Is everybody clear? It says 5. Okay. Let's run this and so 1 is from this one. We were clear on that. 2 also says 1 because it's accessing that top one. Okay. We come back here. 3 says 3, which is this one. You are clear on that also. All right. Jeremy answered that one. Let's look at the last one. 4. We were agreement on this one also. 3 because it's looking for this one. Okay. And 5 says 5 because it's looking at this one. Okay. See, it wasn't too bad. You guys kind of got there. All right. Questions? Again, inside, outside. Kind of starts from here and then looks at the larger picture and tries to find that variable. So this is called scope. And then I talked about, remember the for loops and the if statements, right? It doesn't follow a block scope. So JavaScript is also called what they call is lexical scoping. So before the new version of JavaScript, when we did not have let, right, we only had the keyword var. So JavaScript is not called a block scope language, it's called instead a lexical scope. Block scope language such as Java or C Sharp or any other super nice languages, they follow block scope, which means is that within it respects these parentheses. Okay, JavaScript only respects them when it is the function. Otherwise, it doesn't care where the variable is. For if statement, it ignores it. For loops, it ignores it. Okay, so that's why it's called lexical scoping. Okay, so JavaScript is not block scope. Instead, it's lexical scope. Now with the keyword let, it becomes block scope. All right, because again, it was the frustration that if I use a var keyword, it's kind of global, and it is visible everywhere. Okay, so that's why they introduced the let keyword. All right, any questions? Okay. Um, Let me just show you one more thing. Now, that's it. There's no scope. There's no nothing. But there was this exercise which I said. Um, I was going to code, but looking at your faces, I don't think anybody. Seems like everybody's like checked out by now. All right. So this is kind of a similar exercise that you would be doing for your jQuery homework. So I'm just going to go through it. So basically, you have 4 images, right? Behind each image is a number, but we don't know what the number is. Okay? The game is that you click these and try to reach this number. Okay? So each one of these images has a hidden number behind it, and we have no idea what the number is. This could be 5, 10, 7, 2, I don't know. Okay? So the game is that you click and you try to guess what the number is and try to add up to that number. For example, if I click this, it says the score is 10. What does this tell me? That the number behind this is 10. Okay? Um, if I click this, it says the score is 15. So what does this mean? The number behind this is what? 5. Okay? Um, the score is 18. So the number behind this is 3. And let's make sure what is the number behind it is. So it was 18, now it's 25. So the number behind this is 7. Okay, so basically now you know you're going to try to guess if you reach number 53. It says you won. If you don't, let's suppose I keep going, I have no idea, and I go above, it's going to give you and say you lose. Okay, that's the goal behind this game. It's kind of similar to what you have in your jQuery homework also. Again, now going back to our fridge exercise, we now know how to generate these images. How? Probably I have a for loop behind the scene. Each one of them has a number, and I'm looping through and creating these images using jQuery. Let's go back here. Okay, let me close these. A for loop, these are the numbers behind each image, and I'm looping through each one and then creating this image, right? Just like the fridge magnet thing. Remember, we were looping through the letters and creating an images, creating divs. In this case, you're creating an image. So you're creating an image, right? Adding a class to it, and then giving it an image. Okay, is this clear? Just like your buttons. Okay, you're adding some CSS classes to it. All right, then you append it to your main div over here that you have in your HTML. So now if you look at your CSS, it should show these images over. Okay, each one of them Now, how am I adding these data variables? Same as the fridge one. I probably have a data variable and then I'm creating a new one called crystal value, and each one of them is getting assigned the value from my array. Okay, do you guys see the similarity between this and the fridge game? Same concept over here. Okay, so within, let's try to find that code. Did I minimize it? Where is it? Okay, line number 56. I am creating a data variable attribute and I'm attaching each number to it. That's how I see these numbers over here on this page. Okay, 537. Now when I click each one, how do I access it? Remember that this keyword, same thing. You find the class crystal image. Again, this class is common throughout, so it doesn't really tell you much. Oops, come on. Right, all of these have the same class. So what you have to do is you have to use that this keyword from the fridge one, same thing, get that attribute. This is how you would get that value. Okay, and then after that it's just simple math. It's just adding and trying to see if the total score is greater than whatever the hard-coded number is. Okay, this is a hard-coded number. So on the top you'll find this number kind of hard-coded over here. Okay. If let's see, next Thursday. What I'll do is I will code this exercise again in office hours on next Thursday. But again, make sure you go through it. It's very similar to the fridge one. Okay, same attributes, same classes, same everything. Okay. But what I'll do on Thursday, I'll code it again. In the office hours, and make sure that if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, I can start coding right now, but again, I am looking at people and seems like everybody's like checked out. Okay. Okay. Any questions on this? Kind of, does everybody get an idea? It's same as the fridge one. Okay. Yes.
Are the boxes, I see that there's an array of those four different numbers. Are they changing after you click on them, or are they always going to be the same?
No, they are always going to be the same. Yeah. These numbers are always the same because I'm assigning the first image gets the first number, the second gets the second one, third, fourth. You can randomize it, and you can use the math random and kind of trick people. I think you might have to randomize in your homework. I'm not sure. Do you have to, Ethan? You have to randomize it. Okay. So you'll just use the math.random from previous exercise and kind of randomize it.
Yeah, this is a really big starting point. Like, it's a lot of this.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So, well, here's. Oh yes, Chris. See,
The this on that line, 70, is that referencing the
Okay. It's so yeah. I see what you're saying. So this on click, what happens? It is saying that find this class and then fire this event when somebody clicks on this class. Okay, the crystal image class, right? Now, what is the crystal image class over here? It's tied to this also, this also. All of these images have the same class. Okay, so when will this event get fired? Whenever you click any one of them, it doesn't matter. At this point, I have no idea which image was clicked. Now, if you want to access exactly which line or which image was clicked, this is how jQuery kind of finds out. This keyword, what happens is it goes within this scope. It knows exactly which one was clicked. Behind the scenes, it's keeping a track of each one of them individually. When you use this keyword, $this, it knows exactly which one of them was clicked. Why? Because you don't have any ID, you cannot differentiate in your code from this one or this one. All of these images, all of the HTML behind, come on, is exactly the same. Same class, there's no ID, there's no nothing. So this keyword is important. It identifies exactly which one of them was clicked. And why is it again? these HTML does not even exist in you're not even writing this HTML. This is all dynamic. Okay, so every time you're generating a dynamic HTML, this is how you would be accessing it. Does that answer a bit? Yeah.
You're right, I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
that class is
Yeah.
what it was.
This class is like a starting point. Just with this class, I have no idea which because all of them are the same classes. I have no idea which one was actually correct. Okay, this is the line that tells me exactly which line is correct. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
So this can be used inside of, it has to be inside of a function.
It has to be inside of this one, otherwise going to start referring to something totally different. Basically, you are saying is that within this, whichever classes, whichever HTML has this class attached to it, from within them, tell me which one was actually clicked. That's what it is. This, in a different context, would refer to something different. All right, any other questions? People are packing their bags already. All right, so there's no class on Saturday. There's no class on Tuesday. Next time we'll see would be next Thursday. That would be day 3 of jQuery. So we'll be coming back. As I said, I'll solve this in office hours. Um, please don't consider this 1 week as a vacation. I'll be honest with you. This is vacation for me, not for you guys. This is 6 months course. This is the time to catch up. If you're behind JavaScript, you're behind jQuery, please take. Usually in my previous cohort, you never get this kind of a break, especially between jQuery and JavaScript. I think you guys are lucky that you have a break before we jump into something even more. Please take advantage of this whole 1 week. Go back, redo JavaScript, make sure you understand jQuery, because after this there's a break in November. By that time it'll be like project 1 or something, so it's kind of already too late to kind of go back. So please take advantage of this week. um, don't think of this as a vacation, but again, I'm not going to come and check, so be safe. Happy Labor Day, and I'll see you guys next Thursday. All right. What is it? I